In the late 19th century, a silent storm swept across an entire continent. A storm not of weather, but of ambition, greed, and empire. This was no war fought in trenches. It was a scramble, a race for power, where European rulers drew lines across Africa like it was blank parchment, dividing kingdoms, tribes, and entire civilizations with nothing more than pens and politics. They called it diplomacy. History would remember it as devastation. But how did this division happen so swiftly and so ruthlessly? Why did European powers claim entire regions without stepping foot on African soil? And what was the real cost? Not in gold or land, but in human lives, cultures, and futures erased. This is the story of betrayal masked as civilization, of borders drawn in Berlin that still scar the African continent today. This is the partition of Africa. The borders were drawn with ink, the consequences in blood. 1884, Berlin, Germany. A gathering of European powers begins under the pretense of diplomacy. No African leaders were invited, no African voices were heard. In that cold winter, the fate of an entire continent was sealed by strangers. In a matter of decades, 90% of Africa would be carved up and claimed by Britain, France, Germany, Belgium, Portugal, Spain, and Italy. Not for liberation, not for peace, but for profit. The 19th century was an age of empire. Europe's hunger for raw materials, markets, and national pride was honestly just insatiable. Africa offered gold, diamonds, rubber, cotton, ivory, and above all, land. But you know, there was another motive: fear. Each empire feared being outpaced, so they raced not just to conquer, but to prevent others from doing so. To prevent conflict among themselves, the powers met in Berlin in 1884 and 85. Presided over by German Chancellor Otto von Bismarck, the conference set the rules for colonial expansion. But these were really just formalities. Behind every clause was a thinly veiled plan for domination. No African representatives, no consent, no justice. Colonial powers moved fast. Britain took Egypt and South Africa. France claimed West Africa. Belgium, under King Leopold II, seized the Congo, turning it into a personal hell. In Leopold's Congo Free State, an estimated 10 million Africans died in one of the most brutal regimes in human history. This was not colonization. This was extermination, disguised as progress. But Africa did not fall quietly. Across the continent, resistance flared. From the Ashanti to the Zulu, the Madis to the Maji-Maji, rebels rose with sword and spirit even as they faced guns and gunboats. In 1896, Ethiopia defeated the Italians at the Battle of Adwa, the only African nation to successfully repel a European invasion in the colonial era. The lines drawn in Berlin did more than divide land. They fractured cultures, separated tribes, and forced rivals into the same artificial states. These borders, imposed without understanding, laid the groundwork for countless civil wars, genocides, and secessionist movements. The cost of empire didn't end with colonization. It echoes still. By the mid-20th century, the winds of change began to blow. Across Africa, new leaders rose, demanding freedom, dignity, and self-rule. But decolonization did not erase the damage. The partition left Africa in pieces, economically exploited, politically unstable, and burdened with foreign debt and dependency. And yet, Africa rises. Despite the chains of its colonial past, the continent continues to forge a new identity, one built not on the divisions of Berlin, but on unity, resilience, and pride. The partition of Africa was meant to break a continent, but it only revealed its strength. Now that you know how the borders were drawn, ask yourself, who truly paid the price?